If you've ever paused mid-sentence because a word didn't come as quickly as it used to, or found yourself retracing your steps to remember why you walked into a room, you may have wondered what that moment means. Is this just a normal part of getting older, or is it something you should be concerned about? Those questions tend to surface quietly, often when life slows down just enough for reflection. If that sounds familiar, it's worth saying this early and clearly. Noticing changes in your memory doesn't automatically mean something is wrong. In fact, awareness is often a sign that you're paying attention to your health, not losing control of it. Today's conversation is about understanding the difference between normal age-related memory changes and memory loss that deserves a closer look, so you can feel informed rather than uncertain. As we age, the brain naturally changes in subtle ways. Processing speed can slow a bit, meaning it may take longer to retrieve names, dates, or details that once came instantly. You might remember something later in the day instead of right away, or need a moment to gather your thoughts before responding in conversation. These experiences can feel frustrating, but they are very common and, in most cases, completely normal. Normal aging often affects how quickly information is accessed, not whether it's stored. The memory is still there, it just may take a little longer to surface. That's an important distinction, because it helps separate everyday changes from something more concerning. Slower recall doesn't mean weaker intelligence or loss of capability. It simply reflects how the brain adapts over time. Memory loss that signals a potential problem tends to look different. It isn't just about taking longer to remember something. It's about difficulty retaining new information, following familiar routines, or managing everyday tasks that once felt automatic. The difference lies less in isolated moments and more in consistent patterns. Have you found yourself paying closer attention to your memory lately, maybe questioning moments that you would have brushed off years ago? That heightened awareness is understandable. Memory carries a strong emotional weight because it's closely tied to independence, identity, and confidence. Acknowledging that concern doesn't mean you're expecting the worst. It means you care about staying well. One helpful way to think about this is the and, but, so perspective. Memory slips do happen with age, and most people experience them. But when those slips become frequent enough to interfere with daily life, they deserve attention. So noticing patterns, rather than reacting to single moments, is what truly matters. For example, occasionally misplacing your keys is common. Forgetting how to use them to unlock your door would be more concerning. Struggling to recall a familiar name can be part of normal aging. Repeatedly forgetting important appointments or conversations may signal something else. The difference isn't subtle once you know what to look for. It's also important to recognize that memory doesn't exist in isolation. Stress, poor sleep, emotional strain, and physical health all influence how well the brain functions. A period of fatigue or overwhelm can temporarily affect concentration and recall, making memory feel less reliable even when nothing serious is happening. That's why context matters so much. Memory changes that appear suddenly or that fluctuate depending on stress levels, sleep quality, or illness often have explanations that are manageable and reversible. Changes that progress slowly and steadily over time, especially when noticed by others as well, are the ones that benefit from professional guidance. As people think about memory loss, many immediately jump to Alzheimer's disease. While Alzheimer's is a real condition, it's far less common than normal age-related memory changes. Most people who experience occasional forgetfulness do not develop dementia. Understanding that can relieve a great deal of unnecessary fear. When memory-related conditions do develop, they usually involve more than forgetfulness alone. There may be changes in reasoning, language, judgment, or orientation. Familiar environments may start to feel confusing. Tasks that require planning or sequencing may become harder to manage. These shifts tend to unfold gradually, not overnight. If you're wondering how memory changes might progress over time, it's helpful to approach that question calmly. Progression, when it occurs, varies greatly from person to person. Some people experience mild changes that remain stable for years, Others may notice a gradual increase in difficulty that calls for additional support. There is no single timeline, and there is no benefit in assuming one. What matters most is recognizing that early understanding opens the door to options. It allows for planning, support, and informed decision-making rather than uncertainty. This is why knowing when to seek help is such an important part of the conversation. A good starting point is paying attention to how memory changes affect daily life. If you find yourself relying heavily on notes, reminders, or loved ones in ways that feel new or concerning, that's worth mentioning to a healthcare provider. If others begin to notice changes and express concern, that's also an important signal. Have you ever thought about who you would talk to if you noticed a change that worried you? That question doesn't need an immediate answer. Simply considering it can be grounding because it reminds you that support doesn't have to begin with a diagnosis. It can begin with a conversation. Healthcare providers can help sort out what's normal, what may be related to other health factors, and what deserves closer monitoring. Many memory concerns turn out to be linked to things like medication effects, sleep disturbances, vitamin deficiencies, or unmanaged stress. Addressing those factors often improves cognitive clarity significantly. Family conversations can feel uncomfortable, but they often reduce emotional strain rather than increase it. Sharing concerns early allows for understanding and reassurance instead of silent worry. Information gives you options, and options restore a sense of control. While no one can guarantee perfect memory with age, there are ways to support brain health consistently over time. These steps aren't about preventing aging or promising cures. They're about strengthening resilience and supporting quality of life, which is at the heart of many senior health tips. The brain responds well to regular movement, which supports circulation and oxygen delivery. It also benefits from restorative sleep, when memory consolidation and repair take place. Mental engagement through reading, learning, or meaningful conversation keeps neural connections active. Social connection supports emotional well-being, which in turn supports cognitive health. Nutrition plays a role as well, particularly patterns that support heart health. The brain depends on healthy blood flow, so what supports the heart often supports the mind. These habits don't need to be dramatic to be effective. Small, steady routines tend to have the greatest impact over time. What's one simple habit you already have that supports your mental clarity, even if you've never thought of it that way? Recognizing what you're already doing well can be surprisingly empowering. It shifts the focus from fear of decline to confidence in continuity. Stress management is another often overlooked factor. Chronic stress can interfere with attention and memory, making recall feel unreliable. Creating moments of calm throughout the day, even brief ones, helps the brain function more smoothly. This might look like quiet time in the morning, a short walk, or simply pausing to breathe before moving on to the next task. It's also helpful to remember that memory changes don't define your value or capability. Aging is not a process of losing who you are. It's a process of adapting, learning, and continuing to engage with life in meaningful ways. The brain remains capable of growth and connection well into later years. As this conversation comes together, it's natural to reflect on how you personally experience memory. Learning the difference between normal aging and concerning changes doesn't mean you're waiting for something to go wrong. It means you're staying informed and engaged with your health. Have you noticed how understanding something more clearly often softens worry, even when the topic is serious? That's one of the benefits of calm, grounded education. Knowledge doesn't have to feel heavy. It can feel stabilizing. Memory loss and normal aging are not the same, but they're often confused because they share surface similarities. Taking the time to understand those differences allows you to respond with awareness instead of fear. And that awareness supports confidence, independence, and peace of mind. As you think about memory and aging together, it can also help to reflect on how much experience your mind is actually holding. A lifetime of conversations, skills, relationships, problem-solving, and resilience doesn't disappear simply because recall slows now and then. Much of what you know has become intuitive, woven into how you move through the world rather than stored as isolated facts. There's a quiet strength in that kind of memory. It shows up in judgment, perspective, and emotional understanding. You may not always remember a detail instantly, but you often recognize patterns more clearly than you once did. That depth of experience is something younger minds are still working toward. It's also worth remembering that comparison can distort how memory feels. When we compare today's recall to how sharp things felt decades ago, it's easy to interpret change as loss. But memory isn't meant to stay frozen in one form. It evolves, just like priorities, routines, and the pace of life itself. Have you noticed that some things matter less now than they once did, while others matter more? That shift often frees mental space, even if it doesn't always feel that way in the moment. Letting go of what's no longer essential can actually support clarity, not diminish it. Another gentle truth is that confidence plays a role in memory. Worry can interrupt recall, while calm often restores it. When you trust yourself to remember in your own time, words and details often surface naturally. Giving your mind permission to slow down can improve how it functions. This is one of the reasons calm, steady habits matter so much. A predictable rhythm to the day, meaningful routines, and moments of quiet all support how the brain organizes and retrieves information. Memory thrives in environments that feel safe, familiar, and unrushed. So rather than asking, "What am I losing?" it can be more grounding to ask, "What am I carrying forward?" That perspective keeps the focus on continuity instead of decline, and on capability instead of fear. Every day is another chance to care for the body that's carried you this far. Keep learning, keep moving, keep believing in your own strength. Because aging isn't slowing down, it's leveling up. If today's message resonated, take a moment to subscribe, leave a thought in the comments, or share this video with someone who could use a little encouragement. Because together, we're proving that aging well isn't the exception, it's the standard.